Okay, I know that there are some people from Switzerland at the conference, but I guess none of them is right. Ah, okay, wonderful. Okay, good. So, yeah, should start. Actually, what we heard in the last sessions is pretty much similar, or at least has similarities to what is going on in Switzerland right now. So there are multiple different projects and programs going on around identity management and electronic identities and bringing those together. So there are government-driven programs, but there is also a lot of stuff going on from the private enterprises, especially in the telco markets. So there is new authentication schemes, new authenticators being introduced. There is lots of innovation going on regarding providing strong authentication for OpenID, let's say. There's also lots of stuff going on with regard to securing access to certain e-government services, and there's definitely stuff going on around national ID cards in their second or third iteration. So a big piece of what we've just seen in the previous presentation is actually comparable to what is going on in Switzerland also. There is lots of brownfields. There is lots of legacy stuff to take care of. There is PKI, actually there is PKIs, many of them. There is smart card management, or better, the absence of it. There is nice policy such as if you forgot your smart card, drive home, get your smart card. And that's especially interesting if you're in the army and you're a major general and you come up to the gate and say, "Oh, sorry, Sergeant, I forgot my smart card." I said, "Sorry, sir. Drive home 1.5 hours, pick up your smart card and come back." So smart card management processes, this is why I ask about that. That was like 1995. That's when I think I got my first smart card. And we had to deal with that. We had to go home. But today, you just go to the receptionist and say, "Sorry, I forgot my smart card." Yeah, day pass, wonderful. Other card is blocked for a day. You can work that. Everything is fine. You even got your encrypted email on that one, because we got all the certificates on an HSM, and we can just put it onto your new day badge. Yeah. Bad thing is when your HSM has a problem, dies, and you don't have a spare one that writes high availability. So yeah, sometimes you really lose some cards. So what are we talking about today? Actually, we're talking about federal identity and access management processes. And that is sort of legacy identity management at the time we started. So in the beginning, it was just like that. The federal government has a somewhat standardized way of onboarding their personnel. They have a federal office for HR, sort of, and a standardized process to onboard these people. So whenever a new employee for the federal system gets his contract, he's usually funneled through that HR system. There is sort of an HR repository, and they are all funneled into a database and well standardized. There is some legacy identity and access management system behind it, which will then use some sort of very basic role model thing to put these people into SAP, give them an AD account, and so on and so on. You all know that. We've been doing that for 15 years. Not everybody has been doing that for 15 years. It's like some of them started just recently. So the problem is, with all unification and all centralization, only a fraction of the organizations actually follows that scheme. like the Minister of the Exterior, who handles all the embassies internationally. They have lots of people working in the embassies somewhere abroad. Those are not actually Swiss federal citizens, but they're working for the embassy. Do you believe they get funneled through that HR system? No, they don't. Do you believe that the people who use the embassy systems are funneled through that identity management system? No, they are not. Do you believe that all the organizations that have to do with customs are actually registered as an entity through that system? No. How would you think that the external identities, like consultants, contractors, are registered and get their access? Any ideas? No? Usually there is a secondary way of getting them into that identity and access management system because they are not employees. They don't get their monthly salary. They write bills, so they are procured, sort of. But the fun fact is that for those organizations that are using that HR funnel, even the contractors are being funneled through that HR system, and it's SAP HR, and I tell you, they did lots of custom code to prevent these people from actually getting salaries and not having them assigned. So one of the big issues we came across when we started analyzing this is that there is not really an abundance of consultants and people who can provide services, contractors, in that specific field. So what happens is that many external companies and external contractors from all across the European Union and even abroad are brought into the country to provide these services because there is a lack of sufficiently trained IT and information security personnel, which is a bit of a problem. I myself run a German consultancy, and we are one of these guys in the lower left corner. The first thing when we got awarded our contract was, oh well, please register for a digital ID because we only accept digitally signed PDF invoices from you. And that's where the fun fact really got into the play. You only can get one of those if you are a Swiss company. And that's a bit of a problem. Yeah? They actually shut out any non-Swiss organization from providing services to the federal government by demanding that they get a certificate that is only available to Swiss federal located organizations. So certificates and getting those does imply lots of problems, and getting that cross-border, like we learned in the previous sessions, is a big thing. So even between Germany and Switzerland, or as we've seen before, between Finland and Sweden, Norway and Sweden, these are big issues if you want to do cross-border organizational contracts. The biggest issue that we've seen yet is that not only the embassies are sort of being managed on their own, many of the other departments actually have their own identity and access management technologies. So they first started out and saying, okay, we need federation. But like 2 years ago, that was when this initial program was started, they said, we need to centralize this. We need to try to get all these different federal agencies, all these departments under one hood, and try to get streamlined processes and centralized processes to get all these employees into one identity management and into the different systems. As we all know, this is sort of bound to fail. So the new architecture, which they are working on right now, is about starting up with a, let's say, loosely coupled integration between the several agencies and departments, and then trying to move on to get more and more of these onboarded into a more centralized architecture, but that requires to have the decentralized and the centralized architectures being deployed side by side and slowly migrating. So actually, we're talking about a migration project that's going to last like at least 4-5 years, because right now they are only in the process of designing that new centralized architecture, and suddenly people start to realize, it's not just the employees, it's not just the federal contractors that we need to take care about, it's also the e-government users. And that's exactly the situation where identity relationship management comes into place, because taking into account federal users, contractors for federal agencies, you suddenly start realizing, oh man, there's lots of stuff being provided by the Department of Justice for the local and municipal police. So there's people who are employed by a municipality, but they are actually users of systems that are being provided by a federal agency. So how do I manage these? Are they in scope? Are they out of scope? Do I need to register them? Can I trust the canton, the municipality, or the what's that called? The county, to have a trustworthy enrollment process to actually grant somebody access to a police justice federal system? Is that enough? So that was when I thought what Don just showed us would be a very nice approach to actually find a mutual level where you can say, okay, if you can fulfill these and these requirements and we both fulfill them, well, that is a basis for the trust that we need. Currently, we are looking far more into, let's say, these old school approaches where we have those levels of assurance, 1, 2, 3, 4, where we need to check out if my level 1 assurance actually matches your level 1 assurance, or like Ian Glazer said in the general session, is it really necessary? Do I need to get that mapping that my level 1 level of assurance is compatible to your level 2.3 or whatever? That is where we are actually working on right now. And as you can imagine, the next step would actually be the citizen. Many of the counties, many of the municipalities are actively participating in e-government projects and programs and want to provide better services to their citizens on the municipality level. But they cannot afford to do their own registration. They cannot afford to do their own verification of these users. So what do? Do I grant access to, let's say, a local registry saying, okay, I'm going to move inside my municipality from that village to the other village? Is it sufficient to use my Facebook, Twitter, OpenID account? Can I do that? And by the way, I am a federal co-worker. I am employed by the federal agencies. Can I map my federal identity with my open identity? Is that something that I can do, so I can actually ramp up my OpenID account to say, okay, I'm trustworthy, I can do that? These are things that we are currently investigating and trying to get a little bit more support, a little bit broader support. And suddenly somebody came around the corner and said, yeah, well, didn't you know one of our biggest internal customer is customs? Yeah, there's so much going on with customs between the Swiss customs and all the European nations, or the global nations actually. Can't we just use, let's say, the German EID to register somebody who wants to sell services or products cross-border from Germany to Switzerland? and authenticate them based on these credentials. And that's the moment where the Stork initiative, which I think we will hear about in the next session, came into play, and we need to investigate that too. So we came from like, what, 40, 50, 80,000 employees of the Swiss federal organizations to like 150,000, including police officers and local municipality agents, to like 5-6 million citizens of Switzerland, to suddenly cover the whole population of Europe and European countries. And we need to make sure that not only the local IDs are being accepted, not only that local authentication mechanisms like mobile ID of Swisscom or something like that are accepted, but also stock-related EIDs from other countries in Europe. That means we swiftly moved from just focusing on internal identities for the use of federal government to the people that work for the cantons, for the counties, for the municipalities. We suddenly had to take into account what's going on with the national ID card, which is going to be reissued pretty soon. We suddenly had to take into account, okay, what do we do with social ID? Can we use it? How does it map our levels of assurance? How can we actually use these to make the onboarding easier, which sort of brought us to the point, why don't we go back to the municipalities and check their registries and say, hey, we've got a municipality person who registers me for getting a new passport, a new EID. He is checking my birth certificate, my place of birth, where I live, country of residence, local residence, mother's, father's identity, and so on and so on. So that would be an identity which has the highest level of assurance you could ever get. Sort of a state agent had double-checked all of the paperwork that a person could ever get, better than anything else that you should usually see. And then suddenly data protection kicked in and said, I'm very sorry, you cannot use that ID because it's protected by legal issues. You have to have a new law that enables you to use that identifier. And I said, wow, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot here, but I think that's not discussed until the end. Next step will definitely be to get a little bit more international. Try to check what social ID users, what foreign state ID users we can onboard, how we are going to cooperate with EU companies and EU individuals, and next step will definitely be to extend that to global companies and global individuals. So there's lots of work in progress there, and we're definitely looking forward to investigate that a little bit more. And I already had lots of new thoughts and ideas from attending this session. I'm open for questions, and I'll be around for the next days also. Thanks so much.